Tonight on the daily election fraud update. Voter irregularities, however the fuck you want to phrase it at this point. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of states to cover and a whole bunch of ground that I just want to refresh everybody's memory on. And I think we're going to start here in Wisconsin because it is one of those that was called what feels like 3 months ago, but it was only a few days ago. It was called for Biden right now. And one of the left's things and media in general, I've stopped saying mainstream media at this point because it's all of it now. Who cares? Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. If you don't adhere to their ideology, you're a part of the fucking disassociated class. Whether right now, might be tomorrow, and it could be the day after that. I don't know. My days are numbered, but I'm still just going to be over here yelling to all you wonderful people who take the time to search out a little channel and appreciate the voice that I have out there. I still find that very weird, and I'm internally grateful to all of you, but we're going to start in Wisconsin. Like I said here, how Wisconsin's, because remember guys, there is absolutely no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Widespread, remember that. How Wisconsin's 23,000 rejected absentee ballots could spell trouble for the November election. Remember, no evidence. For months, President, you goddamn right, Donald Trump has alleged without evidence, even in their own article when they just said 23,000 rejected, that any expansion of mail-in voting in the 2020 election will lead to a tremendous fraud and a rigged election. But an APM report analysis of voter data from Wisconsin's primaries show a far more measurable and consequential effect of mail-in voting. For months, alleged without any evidence. Oh, okay. And here's your evidence. Man, life sure comes at you quick. Mail-in voting, rejected ballots. Slightly more than 23,000, inconsequential in a state that only has a few million people in it. 23,000, just a drop in the bucket, mate. Were thrown out mostly because those voters or witnesses missed at least one line on the form. You've heard reports, and I think I've covered this before, but there was ballot curing happening in Georgia, which is not legal, by the way, even though they'd love to tell you otherwise, is what I'm trying to say. But all these weird little fucking rarely used terminology is just becoming more and more a part of my vernacular, and I have to find places for it. But like I was saying about ballot curing, it's not a legal thing. That's where you go around and you fix any little instance of a mistake that's on your ballot in order for it to be properly processed. And that was only happening thanks to Democratic operatives going around house to house in order for people to cure the ballots. No GOP people from the Georgia GOP assembly was going out there, because that's the one thing that when it comes to these rigged elections and instances of provable voter fraud, even though there's no evidence, conservatives, just not even talking political here, anybody who has a more right-leaning sense, when you play against these people out on the court, they're going to play hard. Or if you play them in any type of sport, they're going to play you hard, but they're going to play you fair because they believe in the boundaries of the sport. That's why it's so easy for right-wing people to identify when the right wing has gone too far, to label those people as extremists and disassociate them from the group. And that's why, if you look at the flip side of that coin, the left has a tremendously difficult time of labeling where their group goes too far and not throwing them out of the group, because on their side, you can never be too pure. You can never be too inclusive, right? But that is getting away from the fact that, there is provable fraud that has happened before. So, let's continue. Well, there is no way of knowing who those voters will choose in November. The figure is nearly equivalent to Trump's 2016 margin of victory in Wisconsin of 22,748 votes. Just so you remember, a little better than 23,000 ballots were thrown out. Weird. And with voter turnout expected to double from April to more than 3 million in November, proportionate volume of the ballot rejections could be the difference in who wins the swing state and possibly the presidency. Now, put a little pin in that, just a little mental note that 23,000, okay, it could jump by more than that. So we'll eventually circle back around to Wisconsin once we get to a more comprehensive list, which one of my absolute go-to sources when it comes to fact check information. They've compiled a nice little list that we'll run down just for everybody's point of reference, I suppose. Okay, actually, you know what we'll do? We'll stick in Wisconsin, because for the past 2 decades, the city of Milwaukee has been home to multiple organized voter fraud schemes that turned out untold thousands of illegal votes for Democratic presidential candidates and may have swung at least one extremely close election. Hey now, wait a minute. If we go back to that first page, there's no evidence, and in the same state, I can hardly believe it. Can you hear the sincerity in my voice? In the final days of the 2000 presidential campaign, longtime Democratic donor Connie Milstein traveled from her home in New York to Milwaukee while working as the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee's major supporters. Her mission was to register as many voters as she could, any way she could. On Saturday, November 6th, 3 days before Election Day, she and some employees went to the Milwaukee Rescue Mission to get homeless men to vote absentee. This is something that you guys have probably heard is just, one of those anecdotal pieces of evidence. The dead always vote Democrat, or they'll just, bus people into stations. You can't prove it, therefore it's not widespread, right? These are just little pieces of evidence that eventually add up. It's like how a snowflake eventually can trigger an avalanche, and here we go. WISN TV interviewed Milstein, who admitted that they've been pretty busy going to the local shelters. Patrick Vandenberg, the executive director of one of these 3 shelters, told investigators that Milstein and 6 other Gore volunteers approached the men who initially did not want to register. They changed their minds when Gore's team held up a pack of cigarettes. Milstein's team drove them to City Hall, where they picked up absentee ballots and voted. The scandal became known as Smokes for Votes and was an obvious attempt at bribing voters, but Milwaukee County District Attorney E. Michael McCann, a Democrat, oh my, I'm shocked, was reluctant to prosecute such a high-ranking DNC official. I wonder if that's happening right now. I never would have thought that. What do you think's happening in Michigan? Oh my God. Anyways, I think you guys know that Milwaukee and Wisconsin, that is, if you are from outside of the country and you're not too familiar with the geography, Milwaukee is in Wisconsin. You've got Milwaukee and you've got Green Bay as the larger, more prominent cities in Wisconsin. So there's a little geography lesson from Professor Don. And before we get into some more nerdy shit, let's take a look at relatively recent developments. So Rudy Giuliani, who's heading up all the lawyers for the Trump campaign, who's going to be fighting all of these lawsuits across many, many states, many beautiful states that will eventually flip back red. You bet your fucking bottom dollar on it. Rudy Giuliani denounces ballot fraud in Philadelphia. Who would have thought Philadelphia, known for their very lawful tactics and their history of just great voter authenticity and turnout, would be the subject of a ballot fraud accusation? I can hardly believe it. Following President Trump's apparent defeat to Democratic contender in the presidential race. See, at least they put the little qualifier apparent, but whatever. They can't all be winners. Former Vice President Joe Biden, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who cleaned up the city, and Mayor Bill de Blasio is returned back to a fucking festering shithole, the likes of which has never been seen before, and to steal a phrase from a great man, spoke on behalf of Trump's campaign, citing foul play from Democrats. Oh, really? Who would have thought? Early on Saturday, November 7th, 4 days after the general election, at 11:30 in the morning. Now, why is that significant? Because AP and I think it was NBC, minutes before Giuliani took to the podium, called the race for Biden. Yeah. Just in case you guys thought there was any authenticity left in the media at this point, that they aren't trying to run a distinct discreditation and a demoralization campaign, I just recorded a video that you should really, take the time to watch. It's a long one, so speed it up a little bit, I guess. I don't know. Just as long as you get the information, I don't care how fast you think that I need to talk. Just, yeah, little tricks. However, in the past days, both Trump and Republican poll watchers have lambasted Democratic volunteers in swing states for allegedly mishandling absentee votes and counting votes cast under the names of deceased citizens. Dun, Dun dun! With multiple losses in key states, Trump affirmed that he would take legal action and demand a recount, which is already happening in Wisconsin and is going to be happening in Nevada, I do believe, as well. And because the margin in Arizona depends on how it shakes out, it looks like Trump's going to win Arizona, but there's already a outstanding lawsuit in Maricopa County. But the margin is looking like it's going to finish already within the automatic recount position, because if you request a recount, you have to pay, or the loser of the recount has to pay for the recount itself. Recount. If I say it again, I'll blow my brains out. So expect that, and Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Georgia to most likely follow suit based on what we have here today. A process that has already been confirmed to ensue in some states such as Georgia. Oh, see, yeah, right there. I was just going off the top of my head and I called that perfectly. But while the president remained optimistic of a landslide win regardless of the defeats registered in the past days, Saturday's Pennsylvania result prompted a swift response from the commander-in-chief's team, as it should. Notably, Giuliani asserted at a press conference in Philadelphia, which he denounced has a history of corruption. Oh, buddy, yeah, it does. Another story for another day, as long as they don't get into it here. That Republican poll watchers were not allowed to secure a reliable democratic process by preventing them from overseeing vote counts made by their Democratic counterparts. Yeah, this is outrageous. In an enormously important contest with a very, very suspect method of voting, there was no security, zero. The people in this city, the people of this country, have no assurance at all that those ballots were actually cast that would have been unanimously cast for Joe Biden in order to catch up. Now, we all went to bed. If you were watching the election, by the way, it's the most important thing in the world right now, and I don't think I need to be hyperbolic in saying that, but yeah, Trump had a 800,000 vote lead, by the way, going to bed at around 11 o'clock local time. Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's just fucking vanished. Like a million people unanimously voted for Biden. Who would have thought that? Now, there were still some other Trump votes in there too, but the margins just seemed a little bit fucking whack, if you ask me. The former mayor subsequently introduced Republican poll watchers who echoed his statements with alleged first-hand perspective, and they also have signed affidavits, are going to be testifying in front of the courts that this in fact was the case. These are only 2 or 3 of about 50 people so far that have given us statements, affidavits, recordings. We're going to have many, many witnesses. This is not a small case. It is going to be a big case, he said. Oh, of course, the opposite of small is big after all. One of the poll watchers from Philadelphia, Darrell Brooks, an African-American Trump supporter. These guys are probably facing significant backlash from their community right now, and I hate the amount of racism that we're seeing coming out of the left right now, especially them running around because Cubans overwhelmingly voted Republican in this election, especially in the Miami-Dade region, where they managed to flip a House seat for whatever reason. And another thing that's very, very weird, okay, Ohio was supposed to be a swing state. Florida was supposed to be a swing state. And the margins of victory for Trump there, I think it's over 400,000 in Florida and about 350 in Ohio. And guess what? We're not hearing a goddamn peep out of the Biden camp on this one. Yeah, because they have very, very strict absentee ballot procedures and points of contact and accountability along the way, and that's why there's no peeps out of there, and that's why there was no suspicion of voter fraud or voting irregularities, which seems to be the term of the day. So we'll go ahead and put that in the background. It could be like a little Pee Wee Herman thing without anybody jacking off in a theater. So Mr. Brooks claimed that his Republican colleagues were not allowed to inspect the polls, and that he even endured harassment via volunteers from the Democratic Party. When I go to the polls, it was basically they put us at 20 feet away and said no cameras, no phones, can't take pictures. How are you supposed to watch a piece of paper that is no bigger than your fucking phone with 4, 5, 6-point font on it? How are you supposed to see if it was A, properly filled in, B, if, maybe it was just left blank and they just decided, oh, you know what, they're just voting down ballot for the rest of these Democrats. I'm just going to go ahead and fill that in for you. Yeah, exactly. 20 feet away. That is literally trying to thread a needle at 20 paces. Next thing you know, it was 6 feet away. and they still wouldn't allow us to see anything that was happening. We don't know any names. We didn't see anything. We didn't know if people voted twice or three times. We didn't even know if dead people were voting. Well, we'll get to that. They did not allow us to see anything, Brooks added. We just want a fair election, and we view that as not fair at all. Well, you know what, Mr. Brooks? It absolutely isn't. And what's significant about this, you might think, okay, so guys couldn't see what was going on. Maybe they were just voting correctly, but here's the thing. There are supposed to be one Democrat and one Republican poll watcher making sure that the votes are counted correctly. And clearly that was being violated here. There's video evidence of that. There's people saying that there was also 16 Democratic poll watchers in there. And then when some Republicans were trying to get into the facility as well, they were told that there's not enough room for that. Well, it's like, okay, how about you get rid of half of them and let in half of the Republicans? Or you guys could just let those 16 stay in there and then flip another 16 Republicans in there every half an hour. Can we work something out? Nope. COVID. Don't matter that thousands of people poured out in front of the White House to kick around a Trump blow up doll or have their stupid Trump as a baby fucking balloons up in the air. Nah, COVID in these little areas that we think are COVID. But let's get nerdy now, okay? Before we get into the just straight facts, I'm gonna do a little journalism myself. How about that? We're gonna take a look at the numbers here in Wisconsin. Now, it seems like there's nothing terrible when it comes to that. Okay, 20,000 votes. Weird that separate between them. Wasn't there? Let's just refresh everybody's memory, in fact. Just something real quick. Yeah, 23,000 ballots were thrown out, hey? And then the lead is only 20,500. Really gets the noggin jogging. You know what else really makes you think about this kind of stuff? Okay, look at the margins here. Now, there was no senatorial race to compare this against, but I'll just use this one as a little bit of an example. It's also the same thing in Michigan if you'd like to run the numbers as well, but I don't want to make this video as a fucking marathon watch, so I'll let you guys do a little homework if you so care to. Let's take a look at the U.S. House races. Now, this isn't on a different ballot or anything. This is just down ballot. You got up at the top, like if my remote is your ballot, you've got your presidential category at the top, and then just below it you have the Senate race if your state does, and then you've got the House, and then you have your more local, and then you've got your ballot measures as well down at the bottom. And Wisconsin had a few, I do believe, as well, so they would have had a little succinct ballot there where you can check yes next to what you want and check no against whatever you don't, I guess. And with that said, it takes zero extra effort to fill out your ballot. Now, if you're going to be voting for a president, normally you like that president's party's platform. So what would stop you from voting down the rest of the ballot with that same political party? Probably not much. Okay, maybe you specifically know Tim Rogers. You live in District 4 and you wanted to vote for him, but you just don't like President Trump for whatever reason. That's fine. That happens. It's not a major swath of the population. Likewise, if you like President Trump and you hate the shit out of Derek Van Orden, apparently 12,000 extra people did, and you just didn't want to vote for him. That's totally fine. Now, I wanted to at least let you guys take a look at these numbers here. Now, before recording here, I ran the numbers because I wanted to see if there was any discrepancy between, people voting for the president and not voting for a House race. You'd expect there to be a little bit like within, let's just say, give them about 1,000 votes, okay? Because it's not exactly something that's terribly common, but throughout the entire state, you should be filling out the rest of your ballot. You shouldn't just be voting for, maybe just Joe Biden en masse, but we'll check that out. Here is something that you should see regularly across multiple races, Senate races, House races, local elections, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff. So as you can see here, right now, 99% of the vote is in Milwaukee. Until we get, or in Wisconsin rather, we will probably see a shift in those numbers once the audit and the recount is done. So as of right now, these are the numbers that we can check. I've also added up all of the numbers for all the Republicans that were down ticket on the House races, so we can compare that against them. So President Trump got 1.6 million votes in Wisconsin. Now, you won't be able to see this, but I have a calculator pulled up as well. Now, with all of those races, he got, or every Republican down ticket got 1,621,554 votes. So, okay, 10,000 people didn't like his style. Fair enough. That's fine. That's probably within regular margins of error. Now, I also did the same thing for Biden. Now, as you can see here, he won the state by, the slimmest of margins, 1.63 million votes. Now, you've probably seen down here that most of the Democrats outside of this fucking race, which an extra, 80,000 people came out for Mark Pocan. He must be just a terrific guy, and not even all the votes are in, which is fucking weird. But that should make this a little bit more concerning as well. Because, okay, Biden got 1.63, and how many people voted for down ticket Democrats? That would be 1,529,141. Let me run that by you again. 1.529 million people voted down ticket. That is a difference of 100,000 votes. You don't think something's a little bit fucked up there? 100,000 extra people voted specifically for Biden and didn't vote for local Democrats. Bing! Isn't that a little bit of a red flag, guys? That's what I think. And that's also the same thing that happened in Michigan, which is also very, very weird as well. Like, okay, 10,000 votes. Okay, that makes sense. Within a few thousand, within a few hundred, yeah. Okay, there could be something off there. But 100,000 votes? Really? Really? Okay, I haven't seen enough people talk about this, so I thought that I should bring that to everybody's attention. And now, there was something else that was floating out around there. There was irregularities in how many registered voters turned out en masse. And good old Reuters ran a fact check, and I don't like their fact check. Now, there is a little table that they like to throw out there. I just had to make a burner account, so don't try to look for Ted. Ted was just the first name that came to mind. So anyways, this is one where it's like, okay, immediately I seen that, and it's like, okay, how many of these states have same-day registration? Which I still think is fucking retarded. How are you supposed to, go down there on the same day and register to vote, and you haven't thought about voting beforehand, but you're really gung-ho about doing that extra little bit of paperwork on voter day? Whatever, that's fine. You take a look at these numbers here. Okay, 125% of the vote turned out. Pennsylvania, 109, run it all the way down, up all the way to Georgia, 96%. A little bit suspect on the face value of it. And then if you take into account that most of those states on that list have same-day registration, you'll think, oh, okay, that makes up for the extra whatever, the anomalies above 100%. So, okay, fair enough. You can kind of discredit that. But also think there is never a state that comes out 100% to vote. Yeah, it's mostly around 55 to about 70%. 55 on the low end and 70 at the very, very engaged end. So you think an extra, 40% of people turned out and they just really wanted to vote and they never have before, and they were just really energized to vote for Biden? Something seems incredibly off when it comes to that. And of course, Reuters did some wonderful stuff, and we'll just go ahead and we'll just dive right into the body of this article because they, poison the well with a little bit of preamble on there. So this is the kind of logic that they're using. The Post gave Nevada's registered voters at 1.277 million and projected votes as, just about 1.6 million. Nevada has same-day registration available. Not sketchy whatsoever, so registered voters may have increased on the day of the election. Well then, does that account for, because what does this Post say? You go to Nevada, 125% turnout. Well then. As of this article's publishing, Nevada's voter turnout has been 70%, like I said, was about the high end, for having 1.8 million active registered voters and 1.275 ballots cast as of November 4th, and they have some really funky late ballot tabulation as well, kind of like Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Alaska. But okay, doesn't 70% seem a little bit high? Now I know it makes it a lot easier when you have mail-in ballots, especially if you damage one of them. More likely than not, you're just going to get another one in the mail whether you like it or not. But let's compare that to what Nevada was looking at beforehand. what I have here is, so you can see preliminary voter turnout as a share of eligible voters. So what was this is a regular rate. So we're looking for Nevada here. Now, they're coming in at about 70% right now. We are looking for Nevada. We are looking for, there it is, 57%. Why would an extra 13% of people turn out in 2020 as compared to 2016? Were they that energized by Biden? Listen, if I was very smooth brain, if I was one of these simps that just wanted to go, yes, Kamala in the White House, yeah, I can't believe it, a POC is finally in the White House, Ree! Yeah, I don't think so. I don't fucking buy an extra 13%, but we'll just continue down this fact check, wonderful fact check. The Post gives registered voters in Pennsylvania at 6.5 million, and projected votes at 7 million. Total number of registered voters in the voter registration statistics by county at the Pennsylvania Department of State website shows a total of 9 million as of November 2nd. That is significantly higher than the number in claim. Well, how many turned out in Pennsylvania? According to Reuters, their word, not mine, 6.69 million people turned out. A far cry from the 9 million that were on there, which would still equate to a 74% turnout. I just ran the numbers off screen. Feel free to do the exact same. And we'll go ahead and compare that to 2016. 61%. And I said 74%. Once again, a double-digit jump. Now, we can always just chalk this up to the fact that mail-in ballots are infinitely more easier than going into the polls, but would that really account for a double-digit leap? I don't think so. Now, I'll leave the rest of this because it's just disregarding the fact that there are Herculean leaps of extreme voter turnout, and I just don't buy any of it. I really don't. I could see a few ticks, but you go back and you take a look even further than that, everybody is within a few percentage points. Like, okay, it was probably a little bit higher in 2008 where Obama set all of his records that Joe Biden, because he's so popular and wonderful, he immediately smashed with his popular vote record and overall turnout, because Joe's just the great guy. He's the one. He is the great savior. He should have been the nominee in 2008, and we wouldn't have to worry about demented old Joe now. He could have had a full 8 years and everything would have been perfect because he is so popular and so wonderful. Finally, his 47 years in office, a 77-year-old man, just about to be 78. Happy early birthday, Joe, because all those early ballots really turned out for you. No, these percentages don't make a lick of sense. And before we get into the full list of things, we have some more late-breaking information as well. So we got from the People's Pundit here, a dude who does his fucking best job of doing early polling, and he's done a great job, and he puts a podcast out there, and it's a terrific listen to as well. Now, he's been looking at dead voters. As you can see here, just under 10,000 confirmed dead returned absentee ballots. So the dead requested absentee ballots, filled them out, and returned them. Nothing sketchy about that. We're done for now. While I'm open to the idea that some of these have been rejected, I'm not open to any outright dismissal. They all were rejected. This is a small, tested list of suggested irregularities, are plenty. Georgia, which we began to touch just now, there are 132,000 COA flags in Fulton County alone. Cases of, I'm not too sure, that must mean irregularities. Just so everyone understands, and my listeners will, I'll keep going regardless of the results of this particular election. We're never going to stop until we clean it up. Exactly. And that's the entire point why I'm going so hard on this election. We should have clear and honest results reported to us. We shouldn't have any prognostications saying that Joe Biden is the projected winner in 2020, and if you say otherwise, we're just going to flag your votes. Yeah, seriously, fuck. Oh, why is Parler trending? I don't like that. I don't like that whatsoever. Maybe that means President Trump is going over to Parler because he won't be censored that way. Anyways, that's a little bit selfish of me. I'm also on Parler over there. Not a lot of people that I like are over there, but I definitely encourage you guys, if you use Twitter on a regular basis, to check out Parler. It's not as functionally great as Twitter is, but it also hasn't been going nearly as long. But yeah, it's free and open, so take the time if you so desire. Anyways, Matt Schlapp says they have identified 9,000 ballots that were cast in Nevada by people who don't live in the state. Matt Schlapp, by the way, is the chairman of the American Conservative Union. And to top on the fact that there were, I think at the time that the Trump campaign leveled their lawsuit against Nevada, it was 5,300 compromised ballots, I think from dead people, but I'm not entirely sure, or people who don't live in the county. And yeah, for them to find 9,000, I don't know if that's in addition to, but regardless, 9,000 in a state that kind of like the population of Wisconsin is in the millions, not tens of millions, but still not a small population. So 9,000 is significant. And buddy here, it's like, could these be absentee ballots though? It would be, but the fact of the matter is the clip plays out and it says that these are people who have moved out of the state and haven't been there for a while. So you can't necessarily go on that one. Fair question, something that might be posed to you if you cite this source. Oh, those are absentee ballots. They just mean that they weren't there at the time. They moved. Yeah, no. You have to be able to prove your residency and you have to be there for, I think, about a month. There's something to do with a month that's batting around in my head. So even if you work abroad, like let's say like I had an uncle who worked in Yemen and he would be gone for months at a time and come back. He could still vote in a Canadian election if he voted absentee because his job takes him away, and that's a special circumstance. Just like how there are military votes that are supposed to show up, like you seen in yesterday's election fraud video. I can't believe that I have to do multiple days of election fraud videos. In Georgia, where you had those military ballots, they had to be returned to Georgia because of the personnel that were abroad that had to vote, and they are on months-long deployments. So is their voice any less credible? No. But if you move out of the state because Democratic policies get a little bit too much for you, you don't get to vote in the state that was ruined by those Democratic policies and in the state that you want to go ahead and vote for those same Democratic policies in order to ruin them in the future. Thank God there's places like West Virginia and Oklahoma who have no counties that voted blue in this election. You can check that out too. That's on the county by county breakdown. It's a lovely thing to see. So let's just do a quick hit of information done by the man who is holding the banner highest and is screaming the loudest right now that this shit ain't over. I can't do it with, I have a great core audience right now of 80 people, and I can't thank you enough. Really, it's tremendous support that I did not expect by any means. But you got Steven Crowder over here. He held his live stream this morning. Giuliani came on and broke down a lot of the shit that was going on in Pennsylvania. And what we're going to do here is do the quick hitters, shit that I haven't covered before and I think is very important for everybody to know. So let's just do a hot breakdown of the voting irregularities, potential for voter fraud, if you would prefer that terminology. Going into the election, a study found that 353 U.S. counties have voter registration rates that exceed 100%. In Nevada, the GOP has found over 3,000 instances of ballots that appear to be cast improperly. They've referred them to AG Barr. This includes ballots cast by people who don't appear to live in the state, dead people, and minors, just like I was explaining before with what Matt Schlapp found there. So he's found 9,000. At time of print, it was only 3,000. So anticipate that to go up a little bit more. The Nevada GOP estimates as many 10,000 people may have voted who aren't Nevada residents. So, yeah, like it says there is definitely more to come. After counting on Election Day, Nevada put a pause on counting votes until Thursday. And that is so fucking weird why we're still talking about results not being complete right now. That just opens up the door for election fraud. Okay, you know how many you have to beat? Can you fabricate those ballots? That sure seems like what is a possibility. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened. I don't think winking makes a noise, but I'm winking right now. Anyways, so what's happening in Michigan? Oh yeah, and like I said before, yeah, the current deadline accepting ballots in Nevada is now Tuesday, November 10th, a full week after Election Day. Not weird at all, hey? And now in Michigan, like I mentioned before, a glitch in Antrim County flipped 6,000 votes blue when the clerk forgot to update the software. Another glitch in Oakland County, Michigan, led election officials to hand an upset victory Wednesday to a Democrat, only to flip the win back to incumbent Republican a day later. 47 other Michigan counties use the same software, and also another 29 states use that. Like I said, it was yesterday, it's the one that has the Dominion banner in the thumbnail, if you want to take a look. It is used in every single swing state. And now we know that Dominion software has also been running simulations and has ties with the Clinton Foundation. And you wondering why Hillary Clinton says Joe Biden should not concede the election under any circumstance. Yeah, really gets the old noggin jogging, hey? Correspondence with a reporter from the Washington Post about a 128,000 vote jump from Biden shows no amount of voter fraud worthy of investigation of the mainstream media in general. When these DMs took place, we haven't yet discovered that the Michigan overcount was a typo, meaning WAPO didn't see a crazy six-figure boost as noteworthy. It was apparently only 12,800 votes, which, that was just a typo. And you don't think if anybody pointed that out, there wouldn't have been any change in that. Yeah, exactly. Spalding County, Georgia went 60% for Trump in 2016. As we ran the numbers earlier, you could see that 2016 is a nice little baseline there. It was one of the counties with a glitch that prevented day-in voting for a couple of hours. And because this is all electronic voting, you don't get the votes that weren't uploaded prior to the glitch happening. You don't get them back, okay? So those are gone. Fulton County, Georgia told poll watchers they were done counting and sent them home, but continued to count in secret. That was around 11 o'clock when everybody was deciding, we heard they're going to stop counting. That has never happened before. That's definitely not a cause for concern, but, we can trust in the process and go to bed and definitely not wake up in the morning, and many states have flipped. Whoops, that's exactly what happened. Saturday update on Fulton County, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Fulton County has discovered an issue involving reporting from their work on Friday. Officials are at State Farm Marina. State Farm's on your side. To rescan their work from Friday, the Secretary of State had a monitor on site, has sent additional investigators, and dispatched the Deputy Secretary of State, as well as oversee the process to make sure to thoroughly secure the vote and protect all legal votes. Observers from both political parties are there as well. Well, fucking hope so, because it wasn't the case beforehand. So, we're going to be getting a recount there in Georgia anyways, and shit's funky as well. And to just wrap up on Wisconsin, clerks have illegally altered thousands of ballots. That's what I was saying about vote curing that was happening in Wisconsin as well. And Crypt Keeper Joe, man, who knew he was so popular among not just Iraq war veterans and people who fought in Afghanistan, but the First World War, Second World War, Civil War. In Pennsylvania, nearly 1,600 people were sent ballots who were over 100 years old. 25 ballots were sent to people who were born in the year 1900, making them a cool 120 years old. Many people have been checking the voter databases and finding who are clearly deceased voting. I did that a couple days ago, I think, when I ran William Barkley, whatever. That was one of those things that was apparently fact-checked, but his son lives in the same house. Okay, if he was born in 1902, I think it was. 1902 or 1908. His son would have been born in, 1930, 1940? That would mean he's probably dead as well. So, should we look into William Brantley Jr. as well? Maybe he voted Democrat. Who knows? Raheem Kassam, bless you, of National Pulse found a 170-year-old voting in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. That's why Giuliani held his press conference there, just to make that crystal clear. Do a quick rundown of the poll watchers. Poll watchers in Philadelphia were ordered to stand 20 feet away until they got a court order, which, could you read a book across the room? Yeah, okay. Double that. Throw that into the front yard and try to see if you can read it page for page. At other locations in Philadelphia, poll watchers were unlawfully turned away in direct violation of a court order, and there's video of that as well. I will definitely link this article, as I do with all of the articles as well, into the description if you want to check the little sources as well. The media fact-checked this, saying people were turned away because of an honest mistake. Multiple times at multiple locations. Not an honest mistake, guys. Another poll watcher spoke at the press conference yesterday and talked about how they weren't allowed to see anything. That was Mr. Brooks. Yeah, Mr. Brooks. Daryl Brooks. In Detroit, the absentee ballot counters were even covering up the windows, and we seen that, oh geez, I think that was the day after the election. And you got all the Project Veritas videos that are out right now, and then, okay, according to Giuliani, says that there are 700,000 ballots, 700,000 ballots that need reviewing in Pennsylvania because poll watchers weren't available, because proper segregation of, not that type of segregation, don't get too excited. Ballots that arrived after the fact and legally cast the ballots were kind of just intermingled together, but apparently the Giuliani team has a registry of those ballots that need to be segregated out, and hopefully, like you might have seen in those Project Veritas videos as well, there are, people holding back ballots that came in late and postmarking them for election day so that they'd be counted along with the election day ballots and not having to be segregated out, like the order that Justice Alito, should use proper terminology, has told them to do, even though they weren't. So if they don't follow that, might be in for a revote in Pennsylvania, but Giuliani's very, very certain that he will be able to catch most of them. They'll be able to figure out which votes were cast after the election was called. Polls were closed, what I mean by that, and which ones arrived afterwards. So hopefully they can be able to find those repostmarked ballots as well. I know that's a lot of information, but there is a lot of new information coming out every friggin' day, and Trump's fairly adamant about having a statement on Monday, and shit's going to start going to the courts in a much more formal manner instead of these little press releases that you've seen for Maricopa County, for Nevada as well, the ones in Pennsylvania. All of these are going to be going straight to the courts, and you're going to start seeing who's a friend and who's a foe, especially in the Republican Party, because we all know that the left is just going to scream endlessly, and they're just going to post their one fucking meme that they have right now. So who gives a shit? I still believe vehemently that we're going to come out on top of this, and the courts are going to have our back, because there's, too much evidence of widespread voter fraud for this all to be just coincidental that all of these irregularities go in one direction and not the other. So anyways, guys, that'll do it for today's election fraud update. I'm sure there'll probably be another one tomorrow, because this is not going to end anytime soon, and I just want to do fun Christmas shit here in the near future. And once again, thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to me decipher the news. It's very strange to see that subscriber count go up every day, and people are liking the videos without me having to tell you. And I like I said before, I don't like to do that stuff, because begging for subs and begging for likes is just not what I like to do. And you guys are just organically liking and organically subscribing, and that is all I want. And I really do thank you all from the bottom of my heart. It's really gratifying, and it lets me know that I'm doing the right thing here, because this is a giant leap for me to put my faith in myself and do this for a living. So I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.